Here we are, you guys, season 2, episode 1, Because of Sales podcast. This is a solo episode with myself. Because it's a solo episode, I kind of do an intro in the beginning of the podcast, so I'm going to keep this short. But my ask of you, as I kind of break down the business, what's happening, some of my favorite episodes, and some things that you should take away, my ask of you is to subscribe to our free newsletter down below. Because of Sales is a sales-focused media company that is newsletter first. Okay. You guys see a lot of the podcast, but the real business for us is the newsletter. And I would much appreciate you to go subscribe. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time, but every Wednesday morning with your coffee, I'm convinced, man, there's not really many better things to be doing than reading the Because of Sales newsletter if you sell something to somebody. Okay. So without further ado, you guys, here's me again. Let's get into the pod. All right, you guys, here we are, episode 21, season 2, episode 1. Every 20th episode, I am going to do a solo episode here. That's what this is. We're going to go over the past 20 guests from season 1, and not all of them, but I want to touch on some of my favorite episodes, some of the most fun episodes, some of the most educational, and then some of the best methods that we discussed with these people in their episodes. So in addition to that, we're actually going to start with this. I want to talk about a little bit of how we are growing because of sales, like the brand Because of Sales. We want to be your pulse on the state of selling, and we want to just show you what is working right now for people who sell things. We are a company. We sell things, not too much right now, but we're starting to. And I think it's just cool to document the way that we're growing this business through sales. Quick agenda of what we're going to go through. And I can't tell you how long this one is going to be, a little bit unsure, but I have a good amount of stuff to get through. So quick agenda. I want to do a recap of kind of what Because of Sales is, what we're about, why I'm running this. I want to talk about some lessons that I've learned over the last 21 weeks of running this full time, full content, full newsletter. I want to talk about advertising, because advertising is a big part of what we're doing. And I want to talk about the ins and outs of securing advertisers and what's working and what's not for us. I want to talk about this flywheel that we're trying to build and the progress of it so far. So we're trying to build both an organic and paid flywheel. We're going to get into that. I want to talk about some big objectives that I have over this next season, what I'm trying to do to further grow the business outside of sales. And then I want to get into those episode features. So the most fun episodes, the most educational, and then some of my favorite methods throughout all of this. So let's get into it, you guys. Thanks for coming along. Really quick recap to catch you up to speed if you're not so familiar with what it is that we're doing here. My name is Dylan Vergara. I've been in sales since 2020. It absolutely changed my life. It made me a millionaire in a pretty short amount of time, but that wasn't just through sales alone. It was through sales and then businesses which sold things. And the skill of sales I can attribute to a lot of success in my life. I currently run this company, the Serial Sales Community. We help people land 1099 sales jobs. And I used to run this company, Serial Agencies, a sales agency. We run done-for-you sales teams, or did. They still do. I don't. I got bought out. That was a decision I was happy to make. And when I got out of the agency, I was thinking like, okay, what do I like about this business model? What do I not like about this one? And I ended up here on Because of Sales. So Because of Sales is a newsletter first sales media company. Our entire focus is to give you an up-to-date pulse on the state of selling, whether you're a sales rep, a business owner, or just someone who sells products to the masses. We want to show you what's working right now today. We want to show you what other people are doing. We want to show you what's not working. We want to show you some funny stuff. And so our newsletter is kind of the main part of the business that's a little bit more low key, but I've already asked you once, go down to that first link in the description and subscribe if you haven't. So Because of Sales, newsletter first, sales media company. There's also a podcast. There's also social accounts, which we're going to get into kind of the whole big plan with all of this. Now, really quick, I want to talk about our growth. So on April 22nd, 2025, we posted our first edition. We posted our first podcast, sent our first newsletter, and that was 125 days ago as of recording this. So now it's September 2nd as I'm recording this. I've learned a lot, but I want to talk about kind of what we've been able to do in 125 days across everything. So first and foremost, the newsletter is kind of the main objective. We went from 0. Actually, we had a couple of subscribers before that because I hyped it up and got people to subscribe. But maybe a week or two, it was a week before we sent the first one. We had 0 subscribers on our email. And now I think we have 2,850, maybe. I'm going to ballpark. It was at like 2810 yesterday. So 2,850 active subscribers. That is cool. I'd love for it to grow faster, but also quality is really important to us. And so our open rates, our click-through rates, they're very, very competitive. And I would not want to sacrifice that just to grow faster. So we're trying to actually build an engaged community here. The next growth metric that I'll talk about is our Instagram, which is kind of the leading social media. Surprisingly, not YouTube, where we mainly post a podcast. It's Instagram. And we've been able to grow from 0 to 1,233 followers. We've had some videos pop off, go viral. We've had multiple go from like 20, 30K. The strategy that we do is we post one podcast clip and one meme per day. And we've been doing that every single day. We have 229 posts over the last 125 days. So maybe not every single day, but most of those days. And going forward, we're doing that every single day. So that's cool. Kind of a side thing. Like, we're not really driving too many email subscribers off that. We're not really getting too much traction there. But when our page has 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 followers, it definitely is an asset added to the arsenal. Next is our YouTube. So 179 videos in, we've grown from 0 to 332 subscribers on YouTube, which is not bad. You know, YouTube is a little bit of a different platform. We're usually just posting the long form clips or the long form podcast, and then we're doing a meme and a podcast clip a day. And that's kind of a slow burn, but YouTube audience, if you guys know anything, is so much more powerful and potent than like an Instagram audience. So those are the main ones that we're really leaning on, is like newsletter, Instagram, YouTube. Those are the front runners. Newsletter by far, but then Instagram and YouTube seem to be the runner-ups. Now, after that, we have Twitter. Twitter's been kind of hard to crack. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like we might get to a point where we just really narrow down on the winners. So 125 days, 237 followers. The way I see it, you guys, like, it takes one post to pop off to completely change the trajectory of your business. And I love that game because it's the post that you think is least likely to do it. I remember one night, not to get too off track here, I was filming 3 TikToks per day every single day for like 60, 90 days in. And I was like, man, I'm tired of doing this, but it was working. It was compounding. And it's like 10, 11 p.m. I'm like, shit, I haven't filmed my videos. I have to. I'm laying down on the couch, all lazy. It's dark, lighting terrible. I'm wearing something that I shouldn't probably be like filming content in, just something casual, right? Film the video, boom. 2 million views. Probably drove multiple 5 figures of revenue into our sales community. So media is an outsized bet. LinkedIn has been probably the toughest platform for us. I will not lie to you, which I thought LinkedIn would be a front runner. And I'm not counting LinkedIn out, but LinkedIn has 54 followers. So from 0 to 54, it's been pretty tough. I'm not going to lie to you. Our posts get hardly any views, hardly any traction. So we're going to keep playing that game for now, but that might be one that we cut out. I hope it's not. I hope we make it work. But I want to double down on the winners. That's the whole idea. Now, if we go to Spotify and Apple Music, these are the last 2 platforms that we're posting on. So we have 40 followers on Spotify, 635 streams, and 174 plays within the last 30 days. We're not super viral. It's hard to grow a podcast. The podcast isn't the main business. Despite you guys maybe seeing more of the podcast is not the main business. The podcast is one cog in the flywheel of the organic growth that we're going for. There's a whole other side, the paid side, that we're going to get into. So Spotify's that, and Apple Music is just less significant. There's people that watch it on there, but it's not even comparable to Spotify. So anyways, we're making an intentional effort to be everywhere, to meet you on the platform of choice. And so far, it's working pretty well. Now let's talk about some lessons. Here's one that stood out to me. And just so you guys know, I've been in sales. I've run online businesses. I've tried every online business. I've had success with a couple of businesses, getting them to 7 figures in a year. But the newsletter and media business, despite having like a small personal brand, this is not one that I'm super familiar with. And you know, how I even really started to have a stride with this is like I paid someone for a cohort that they were doing, and I learned everything from this person who had successfully done what I wanted to do. So another example of me paying to learn from people ahead of me is I one day just reached out to the producer of one of the biggest business podcasts in the world, like top 5. And she was like, yeah, I'm down to chat. I asked her if she has content, if I can buy a consulting hour, this and that. She's like, no, I don't, but I'm happy to talk with you. I was like, wait. So I got a lot of perspective from that. And she let me know that podcasting is really hard. Getting advertisers that pay enough for the podcast to be not only your full-time thing, but like a really, really good full-time thing is hard. So it's a long game. She said, if you don't plan on doing this for 3 to 5 years, you probably shouldn't be doing it to begin with, which I'm okay with that. And it really helped me reprioritize my focus back on the newsletter where it originally was. Because again, like as of right now, podcast takes a good amount of my time to prep, get the clips. I have one person who helps me do this, but podcast takes a lot of time. And so this helped me reshift my focus back on what's important. The next lesson I wanted to talk about is the need to monetize internally. So when I first started this business, the goal was to basically monetize in a way that required as little service delivery as possible for me. So again, I've run an agency. An agency is like every client is a boss, right? I've run a community that I still run. And while that does well, you're limited to how big you can go, but media infinitely scalable. And so the idea is like figure out how to play the advertising game. That was the original idea. That is still the idea, but the advertising game doesn't really make sense until you have an audience worth advertising in front of, like a good size. So this led me to the point of realizing that I need to monetize internally to get there faster, right? So with the newsletter, primarily, it's kind of a race to get to your first like 10,000, 20,000 subscribers while maintaining quality. Anything below that, as I see it, it's kind of child's play. Like you're not really playing the game until you are in that ballpark and growing. The reason why we need to monetize internally though, is because to this point, I've just been funding growth, and I can talk more about like the expenses of the business, but I've just been funding growth with the profits of my other business. So I would love to fund growth with the profits of this business. So one thing that we're looking to implement, I've already started putting it together, and this is one of the big objectives, is some sort of like low ticket guide or book for salespeople. I'm not going to give away the exact idea, but I want to make this like sub $10 impulse buy just to kind of liquidate the cost of each subscriber, try to zero that out and maybe break positive. Because as soon as we can go gain subscribers for free, basically, not even making a profit, but gain subscribers for free, I will put infinite money into this business. Like this is my long-term play. Yes, it's a race to 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 newsletter subscribers. It's also a race to get to the point of acquiring subscribers, break even or positive. So lesson, I'm not going to get there through just advertisers, but if I can find a way to get there without dumping more and more, like digging the hole, because right now we're digging a hole and I'm fine with that because I know what's on the other side, but we got to monetize internally. And I want to do that as lightweight as possible with as little of my time as possible. Not to sound super lazy or anything, but you are capped at how big you can scale when your time is involved. And that's why I got into the newsletter business. All right, team, quick break for the sponsor here, the Serial Sales Community. This is the business that I have personally been running for the last 3 years. We help people get 1099 remote sales jobs, whether you're coming from a sales background or not a sales background. That doesn't matter. We can help you either way. We don't do job placement. We don't guarantee income because those things are short-sighted and are not going to help you in the long run. But we do a lot of other stuff in addition to sharing jobs that you probably would not see on your own. And we're pretty good at getting people the result they come for. So if you guys are interested in the remote appointment setting or remote closing space, all inbound leads, work from home as a 1099 contractor, and taking advantage of those 1099 contractor benefits, not to mention this is a write-off as a 1099 contractor, then go down to the second link in the description. Check out the video on the page, learn more about us, and book a call with the team if you're feeling up to it. Mention Because of Sales, we will give you 5% off any membership you choose. Now let's get back into the pod. Now let's talk about advertising a little bit. So this is something that I'm completely new to. Through my personal brand, I've had companies reach out to me, hey, we'll send you these clothes, or hey, we'll send you this, just post on your story. I've had some affiliate deals where people paid me retainers, but nothing like an actual content creator, like an actual advertiser. So here's what I've learned about advertising, especially in front of this audience. I should probably tell you about the audience and with the companies that want to advertise in front of them. So 2,000 subscribers or so. The average person on our newsletter, which I'm super satisfied with, is 5 to 10 years in sales. They're either a closer, account executive, and then just below that is sales manager. I'm ballparking these stats, but they're pretty accurate. The average subscriber is making just under or low to mid 6 figures, which is a really valuable audience. Like it's hard to grow a big list with a high paid audience. So really big there. And they're in all industries. So we're trying to be the pulse on the state of selling in general, not just one industry, which, as I've kind of gone through this some more, it definitely has presented challenges being like a generalist. But at the same time, I just see it as a bigger opportunity. Like there's more people that we can reach. And so over time, we're going to definitely refine the way that we do things to be applicable to anybody in sales, aside from just here's how you handle your objections 20 different ways. So that's the audience. Now let me talk about advertising to that audience. I already kind of said it, but if you want to make money with advertisers, like being paid, you need to have a big audience. And, I'm running through Beehive, is a newsletter hosting platform. They have internal advertisements. I will put some in the newsletter. They pay a little bit, but it's really, really, really not that much. I think the first month we turned it on, last month we made I can't even tell you, less than $100. There's also something piggybacking off advertising. Beehive has this thing called Beehive Boost, where when someone subscribes to your newsletter, they get recommended other newsletters, and companies will pay to be those recommended newsletters. We've probably made around $100 from that this month. So over the course of the last month, we've seen a little uptick in just easy, sustainable revenue, but we're still not positive. It helps a little bit. We've sold one advertisement previously in the newsletter. We've quoted a few, sold one, couple $100 for a SaaS tool. It was when we were a lot smaller, and he basically sent me a DM trying to advertise on my main profile, and I was like, you might want to advertise here instead. So that's how that happened. Another thing that I learned is that the advertiser pool is not infinite, and there's definitely some people that are more open to advertising on newsletters than others. Newsletters are one of those things where you're not really going to advertise and get a direct ROI super fast in most cases. It is kind of more of a brand play. And so the objective is getting in touch with those companies that can stomach the brand play, because the brand play doesn't really work with a one and done. And another thing I've learned recently is that advertising is relationship based, and I want to do better in the future to go and build those relationships and to do outreach for advertisers and all that. As far as lessons too, going back, because I feel like I should have told you guys this has kind of been an on the side business to this point. And it was supposed to be the main business. Life gets busy. Other businesses need more attention. But I'm about to be in a season of this being the main business, aggressively trying to scale and grow and improve so we can start getting those big advertisers. That's what I've learned about advertising. It's a dance. It's a relationship game. I mean, it can be really, really fruitful, long-term contracts if you get the right people that want to get in front of your audience, but it's not easy to get there, and I am okay with that. Let's talk about the flywheel that we're trying to create. There's two flywheels that the biggest newsletters in the world have created and why they grow so fast, so sustainably. There's an organic flywheel and there's a paid flywheel. And why I'm calling it a flywheel is because once it's going, it just goes faster and faster and faster and easier and more profitable. So through organic, basically, it seems like probably Instagram is going to be the leader, then YouTube. And if the others catch up, that's great. But the idea is, what we pay in time and money to get content distributed on these platforms is less than what we receive back in terms of follower or subscriber value. So, let's just say our subscriber conservative side, we can get them for $2.50. If we know through paid ads, we can get them through $2.50. Does the number of subscribers that we get over a 30-day time period, is it profitable compared to what we put in, compared to the team cost, compared to the time, the software, all of the above? So that's one that we're working on. I do have, again, I've mentioned the personal brand in the sales niche, more so in that high ticket contracted 1099 stuff. I'm trying very minimally to promote this through that personal brand because I want this to be self-sufficient. And I kind of see that as short-sighted play to promote with my own personal brand. Yes, I do it, but I'm still putting effort forward to build the because of sales brand in itself. So that's the organic flywheel, and that's, young. It's a grind right now. We're getting subscribers, but it's nothing substantial, but we're definitely going to expand on this. The next flywheel is the paid flywheel. And so this is through meta ads. The meta ads are bringing in a really large majority of our audience. And this is the audience that is kind of in that older, more experienced realm. I've seen this trend that's bringing in the people that have a lot more money. They're a little bit older, maybe more interested in reading newsletters. Instagram and YouTube, these reels and stuff like that are bringing in a younger audience. Maybe they're more just sales curious. They're newer in their careers. And I think it is good to have a mix of both, but as long as each are high quality in their own regard, right? So talking about Meta, I went through a program, helped me learn how to run Meta ads for newsletters. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've kind of just had it on autopilot. I launched the same ads in May that are still running to this day. I've upped the budget slightly, and we're starting to see a taper in the price per subscriber. So in the beginning, we were in the $1.30, $1.40 range. Now we're in the, if I really looked at it, like above $2, maybe like $2.30, $2.40. Over the course of thousands of new subscribers, that adds up for sure. So luckily, I have another business that spits off profit that I can kind of like set this on autopilot and not stress over it too much. But when it comes time for us to do this big push and like be actively testing new ad creatives and upping the budget and creating this paid flywheel, then it's going to take a little bit more attention. The objective here is get a decently priced subscriber, let's call it $2, and be able to get more than $2 out of that subscriber on average quickly. So that's done through these Beehive boosts. It's going to be done through our low ticket product that we're going to release. If I price that around $8 and 1 in every 6 buys it, in addition to Beehive boost, I think we're going to reach maybe not profitability, but closer to break even. And we can always adjust pricing on these low ticket products or services. So that's the flywheel. Organic, work in progress; paid, work in progress. Really, I just haven't had the time to fully build these like big picture things that I'm doing, but we're almost there. Now, let's talk about our big objectives. Like, what am I doing in this business to actually grow it right now? Well, one of the very first next things that I'm going to be doing is mapping out our entire process on a Miro board when it comes to content ideation, creation, distribution, and tracking. This is a content business. The newsletter is content, the ads are content, the social is content, organic, everything is content. So like right now I have a little bit of a bottleneck with my time. I'm a little bit more involved in this part of it than I would like to be. It's time for me to map out the entire process and start assigning it to other people. I do plan on writing the newsletter for basically forever, but in terms of like selecting clips, editing, distributing, captions, like all this stuff, I need to get some help on that. So I need to map the process and start to outsource. Next big objective is finishing up this guide that we're putting together. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is because I want you to buy it. Thanks for buying if you do. But basically, we're interviewing 40 certain types of people. And we're asking them 40 questions. It's not salespeople, by the way. We're asking them 40 questions that you wouldn't otherwise really have the answers to. And then we're going to take the summary of each of those 40 questions across the 40 people and turn this into like an easy to read guide, basically. The intention is for this to help you land your next sales job or a better sales job. So that's taking a while. The reason why it's taking a while is because I need to reach out to people. A lot of these people I don't really know. So I'm finding them by title, reaching out, and then I have to incentivize them to work with us. I think I'm probably like 15%, 20% done on that 40. It either consists of an interview or them answering 40 questions on a Google Doc. Like if I was a stranger and I reach out to you and I said, hey, do you want to take more than an hour of your time to answer 40 questions on a Google Doc for someone you don't know? It's a tough sell, right? So that's the process right now. I will have more time freed up, hopefully do more of that soon. Next, hiring help. So I mentioned this. I do have one team member that helps me with the content distribution, and I'm still a little bit involved in the kind of the handoff between the creation and the distribution. And I would either like to assign more of that work to this person or bring someone else on. In a perfect world, I have interviews and I don't have to think twice about them getting on every single platform, the best clips getting on every single platform, tagging people where they exist. And I just focus on talking to cool people about how they're selling things and writing a newsletter and finding out what's happening in the world of sales. So the first hires that I could see coming up, maybe a creative to help with things like thumbnails, captions, clip selection, stuff like that. The last big objective that I have here is second to last is new ads. So get a little bit more aggressive with the ad strategy because right now I feel like I'm pouring water into a leaky bucket. And the bucket's not completely leaky, but it's a little bit leaky. Like we could be getting more out of the bucket if I had the time to fix the bucket, if that makes sense. So I need new ads, new creatives. And honestly, that doesn't take that long. And I'm kind of just procrastinating that. But the main idea that I want to get at here across some of these big objectives is I want to begin working on the business instead of in the business. Because right now I am very in the business. And when we post weekly, both podcasts and interviews, and I have to record and write and go find the best content on the internet when it comes to sales, it's a lot of work alongside, another business that requires my time. So objective over this next season, work on the business business, not in the business. And this is going to be cool to look back on and reflect. Now, let's get into some of these episodes. By the way, before we get into the episodes, just really quick, we are like heavily investing into this. In terms of what we've earned, which is maybe not even $1,000, we've put in a lot of money. Like I've put in a lot of money and I'm okay with that. I know it's a slow burn. I could either do it with my time or I could do it with money. And right now it just makes more sense to do it with money because I know what we're working towards has outsized returns. And it's just a matter of day by day showing up, doing the boring work until we get lucky. So we are very in the red, and that's okay for now because that's what it takes. That's why if everyone could do this, everyone would, because this is a business model that gives you like infinite leverage once it gets working. The reason why not everyone does this is because not everyone can commit to writing a newsletter and recording a podcast every single week for a year, or committing their own time or money to this every single week for a year and seeing the bank account, your personal bank account, your other business bank account go down, like auto draft or auto pulling amounts from it. So it's a game of attrition. It feels like it's a good test for sure. Okay, now let's talk about some of these episodes. So I want to talk about some of my favorite like fun episodes. So usually what these are, they're me talking to people that I already know pretty well. And so the topics that we get into are less surface level, less like tell me about your story, and more like, dude, what's up? What's working for you right now? Like sharing some laughs, some jokes, that kind of stuff. The first one that I'm going to put on here, and these are in no order, but it's going to be episode 15 with Marcos Ruiz. He runs The Birdhouse, which is probably the biggest ghostwriting agency for X and LinkedIn. Content creators, they write for some of the biggest personal brands and strategy. They do a lot more than just write content, but he runs a pretty cool agency. We talked about kind of like how they're selling so much with their written word. Like they booked 700 sales calls the month we chatted. He's working with some of the biggest personal brands. So we get a lot of cool insight into how they're selling through social media, through short, mid, or long form content, how they're booking a lot of inbound sales calls, 700 in that month, and how their clients are making millions and millions of dollars per month. So that was cool. Next, I want to talk about episode 6 with Antonio Vaglica. Antonio is a guy that I'm currently a client of his. Him and his partner, Landon, who we might have on in the future, run a fractional family office, basically. This was an in-person podcast. I think it was the first in-person podcast. And you know, he's a guy that, yes, I'm a client of his. Yes, he helps me with some pretty serious, important stuff. But like, he's a young dude, late 20s. We've met in person multiple times. We have a lot of mutual connections, and it was just good to like catch up, joke around. He's very wise, I would say. He works with a lot of very successful people, and I think that rubs off on him. And it was a fun one to record. I'll say that. Another one I'll talk about in terms of like fun episodes is episode 4 with Griffin Malice. He is basically the first guy that I ever met when I moved here to Austin, Texas. He runs a coaching consulting business for mental health practitioners to help them grow their businesses. They do multi-seven figures per year in revenue. And he's a guy that I have dinner with on a regular basis. And so this was definitely a lot less about like, tell me your story, but what's up, dude? Like, how are you? What's working in your business? He met his business partner on a Southwest flight. Super random. They've been doing business together for 5 or 6 years. And he's definitely like one of the boys. So there's some good banter in that. And he's very smart as well, very calculated, and it was just a fun one to record. And then the last one I'll say on these fun episodes is a guy I used to work for back in 2022. This is episode 11 with Gabe Palugas. He runs a fitness coaching company. They've been running for a while. There's been a lot of iterations. I think maybe 6 years, don't quote me on that. But in 2022, I was a sales rep for them, taking inbound remote closing calls. It's just been cool to stay in touch. I mean, he's younger than me. I didn't know that at first, but he's a young dude, just had a baby, married, very convicted in his beliefs religiously and societally and as a man. Like, he's a pretty easy guy to get along with if you kind of see eye to eye. And so a lot of laughs in that, talking about what's working, what's not. One thing that I thought was super funny is probably the hardest I've laughed on any of these podcasts. He went through a sales training with Austin Medlin, who was episode 9. And he was like, yeah, Austin just gave me the permission to tell people I think they need to do this right now. So he started doing this on sales calls, and he's like going through objection handling, telling stories on that. And he's like saying how he just started saying, yeah, I know you need to talk to your wife, but I think you need to do this right now. And he says it works. And when he was telling me that, like, it was funny, but he's like acting out these scenarios. And I thought that was pretty funny. And so Gabe is kind of like the sales side of the business. He's had 3 partners. They went down to 2, and he's really good at sales and just someone that's good to be connected with. So fun episodes, mostly with people that I already know, kind of catching up, that are just good at what they sell. Let's talk about the most educational episodes, and I'm going to give you a reason as to why. So if you're watching this and you're newer to our podcast and you're like, I want to learn what this is about, or I want to learn how to do this better or that better, go to these episodes. So in terms of educational, again, no order. First one that's going to come to mind is episode 19 that just came out with Jordan Park. So Jordan Park used to work with mastermind.com, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Jeremy Miner, a lot of big names to build CRMs. And he's kind of on the operations side, as you could guess after I say CRMs, but a really unique perspective from him, going through the ups and downs of sales and business ownership in life, and then ultimately finding himself in the position that he is, where he's able to find out that he's creative through sales operations. So sales operations, not super sexy, but there's definitely a lot of upside if you do it right. And so he really got into some cool strategy stuff on what they're doing, what they've done, how they've done like 8-figure launches through webinars, operations, and we got into a lot of cool AI stuff in that one as well. So I would definitely watch that if you're at all interested in sales operations or just like geeky sales stuff that'll make your job easier and let you sell more. Another one that comes to mind in terms of educational episodes is going to be the episode with John Mao, which is number 2, our first guest ever on the podcast. John Mao, someone that I've worked with on a consulting basis back in 2024 to help him grow like coaching and sales agency. And it's absolutely insane to see what he's been able to do within a year. I mean, his coaching business is far bigger than a lot of other people out there, and he's done it in such short time. So he went from being the top rep with Jeremy Miner at 7th level to running his own sales coaching program and sales agency. And he does sales, done for you sales teams for some of the biggest brands in the world, biggest online personal brands. And I think this is a great educational episode because it shows you what can happen within a year if you just put your mind to it and you get to work, blinders on, believe in yourself, build the necessary skill sets, and take swings. He went from $157 in his bank account to $250,000 in about a span of a year and a half, maybe 2 years max. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while since we recorded the episode, but very, very, very fast, extremely fast. And so if you're a young guy looking for inspiration, maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck where you're at and you know you can take a swing and you want to play offense, the episode with John Mao is a good one. Episode 2. Another one that comes to mind here is episode 17 with Nick Elia. So Nick Elia is the CEO of a sales agency. I think he said last year he hired 350 appointment setters. And we go into a lot of hiring stuff, personality, characteristics, what it's like to actually run a sales agency. And Nick has an approach that's a little bit different than I would say most traditional salespeople. I think he's a little bit more thoughtful than a lot of these salespeople, a lot of these sales agencies, sales business owners. So we really get into a lot around hiring and client selection and managing relationships. Nick is a guy that I met in Japan at a mastermind recently, and this was really our first time to kind of sit down and dive into like strategy. So I thought this one was really cool. If you guys are at all interested in running like a sales agency similar to what I've done, Nick is a good one to watch. We also had episode 18 with John Carson. He runs a B2B SDR agency. Episode 17 with Nick Elia. He runs a B2C, primarily like high ticket remote sales agency. We have edition number 12 with Dylan Rich, who runs the same kind of model as Nick Elia. And we have John Mao, edition 2. We don't talk as much about sales agency in edition 2, but still a good episode to watch. Now, we talked about some of the most educational episodes. And by the way, if you're here looking for like, hey, I want an episode on B2B, I want an episode on cold calling, I want an episode on prospecting, I want an episode on prospecting, I want an episode on written content, an agency or whatever, like let me know in the comments. I can either point you towards one that we've done or I can go find someone that does that. Again, you know, a lot of our subscribers are salespeople, but we're more so interested not in the act of like being a better salesperson, while that is valuable, and not saying we don't want to do that, but we're more so interested in what is working right now to sell things to people through any channel, through any medium. So let's talk about methods. Within these episodes, there's a lot of different topics that we talk about. And, you know, I might be missing some, but these are some that just come top of mind, starting with Nick Elia, episode 17. We talk a lot about personality in hiring and using personality tests to hire. And he told me that his top performers, if he's looking at the top 20, 85%, which is like 17 of them, fall within the same personality type based on these assessments that they do. And so when they're hiring people, the first thing they do is they ask them like some basic questions to make sure they're like have internet. They're a real person. And then they give them a personality test. And based on that, they're like pushed in a certain direction based on how they score. So if you're hiring high volume and you have some top players, I think giving them personality tests and then basing your hiring around that is not a bad move. I thought that was pretty cool to dive into. We spent a little bit of time talking about that. Another cool creative method within one of these episodes that I wanted to highlight is episode 14 with Dan Tells. He is head of creator partnerships at whop.com. Whop is a payment processor slash community hosting platform slash marketplace for online business owners, typically in the like info coaching consulting space. They're kind of like, if I really wanted to dumb this down, they're like Shopify, but for creators. So one thing that I thought was cool, like we did some exercises. Dan, they sell a lot, but the sales process is different and the product that they're selling doesn't really cost people a lot. They're basically monetizing heavily through payment processing. And so we get into like, dude, how are you selling to these people with huge personal brands? Like I'm trying to think of an example. Liver King. You guys know Liver King, hopefully, right? If you don't, pause this and go look up Liver King. He's a crazy cat and they're not working with him, but we ran an exercise. I asked him, I was like, dude, if you were to go get Liver King as a client to process with you guys to use your platform, how would you do it? And so we dive into a lot of the strategy on how he has like a not so common sales role and how he does not so common things to sign deals that pay them a lot of money. So he doesn't do any cold calls, a little bit of cold email, but kind of manual, not like scaled cold email campaigns. And him and his team do really well. So when it comes to selling to creators creatively, episode 14 with Dan Tells, very good. Next, in terms of cool methods that kind of stuck with me as I skimmed through some of these episodes, episode 9 with Austin Medlin. So Austin's episode was another in-person one, maybe our second or third that we did. And I thought this one was good because we really got into like selling and how to sell. I wrote down here in my notes, how to sell like a leader, like leading people to the outcome that they want and like having them buy into you as the person to deliver that outcome. So if you are interested in looking at like specific strategies to sell more people into your service, like I'm on the phone and I want to sell this person and I want to do it in an ethical way and I want to be really good at this. Majority of this episode, we are talking about sales strategy. I would say out of all the other episodes, this is the one where we actually are talking about how to sell through the phone, through Zoom, in person, doesn't matter. That stuck out to me. And then last thing here, in terms of methods, episode 3 with Kellen Casebeer. So Kellen runs a B2B outreach prospecting agency, lead generation, if we really want to simple it or like dumb it down. But we got into some really creative stuff when it comes to custom, like AI, B2B prospecting, segmenting audiences, reaching out with certain messages based on recent events, and then setting automations around that, like some really geeky stuff. But I love that stuff. I just learned, because I don't really come from as much of the B2B side, I learned a lot of cool stuff when it comes to doing outreach to B2B companies and making it good. Not cookie cutter, not first name, custom fields. I mean, yeah, first name, custom fields, but like far beyond that. So towards the end of that episode, we get really into the trenches of like how they do outreach, and they do it for like very niche clients into very even more niche markets. So that's one that I would definitely check out if you're in the game of prospecting B2B or signing clients to do that for. So that's basically all I had to talk about on this episode, you guys. Again, we're going to kick off season 2. This is episode 1 of season 2, episode 21. You see what I did there? And I'm going to do this every 20 episodes or so to just document, how the business is going, share what I'm learning with you guys. And some of you guys might really like this. Some of you guys might not like this at all. So let me know. I think there's definitely lessons to be taken out. Even if you're selling like cars, for example, there's lessons to be learned from other industries. And that's honestly a big part of why we exist as well, because through one conversation, one idea from someone else's industry that might be a little bit ahead of yours or just different, you're like, wow, that's really interesting how that works for you. How does that apply to what I sell? How does that apply to the people I sell to? And boom, game changer. Like overnight changes the trajectory of your business, your income, the products that you sell. And that's infinitely valuable. So perspective is the name name of the game when it comes to Because of Sales. We want to give you a pulse on the state of selling. And I'm going to wrap up this podcast here. So you guys let me know, please, in the comments. Go out of your way, leave a 5-second comment on what you thought about this, what you want to see in this next season, who you want to see more of. If you have recommendations, please drop them. We'll reach out. We'll get whoever you want on here. It's kind of a combination between people that I personally know and want to talk to and people that I don't know. And also, newsletter, go subscribe to that. That's the priority. And we'll see you next week. We got a banger coming to you. All right, you guys, I pretty much just ran an outro on the video, but this is the official outro. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you want to see more of. Want to keep this fun, refreshing, and educational for you guys. So don't hesitate. Wherever you're watching, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, drop a comment. Let us know what you want to see. And before we get out of here, go down there. While you're scrolling down there, go to the first link in the description. It's going to be the link to join our sales focused newsletter every Wednesday, less than a 5-minute read. We send you the best of the best when it comes to sales from the internet and a deep dive on someone who's really good at what they do. And you can definitely take some stuff away from that. So thank you guys for watching. Let's kick off this season 2 with a bang. Join the newsletter. We'll see you next week.